Uh, in the last few classes, if you just recall back, we first started with hypertension, then we talked about congestive heart failure, then there were a few lectures on coronary artery disease. Thereafter, we talked about rheumatic fever, then its consequence, what were known as valvular disease or valvular heart disease. Finally, in the last lecture, we talked about infective endocarditis. So we have talked about the arteries, we have talked about the valves, and there is one major structure which basically involves the heart function of the heart, that is myocardium. So in today's lecture, I plan to take up the diseases of myocardium, meaning the heart is involved not because of valve, artery, hypertension, and pericardium disease. So when we talk about disease of myocardium, what it intends to say, myocardial disease that is not due to ischemic, that is coronary artery, valvular, which we have already talked, which could be rheumatic or for other reasons, or hypertensive heart disease, and may be cause. So myocardial disease, which is not due to ischemic, valvular, or hypertensive heart disease, is either caused by an or a chronic inflammatory process, which is known as myocarditis, or a myocardial disease secondary to an idiopathic myocardial disease, which leads into cardiomyopathy. So, cardiomyopathy, myocarditis are the two groups which constitute the under the heading of myocardial disease. Let's take one by one. We talk about myocarditis. It is the acute inflammation of the myocardium, and it has many causes. As it would show up that probably it is something to do with an infection or which may result into inflammation. So myocardium, it is very difficult at times. Establishment of the definite etiology, unless there is an isolation of viruses or bacteria, is always difficult in routine inflammation in clinical practice. In other words, acute inflammation of myocardium, but for isolation of viruses and bacteria, the other etiologies or establishment of the definite etiologies at times is more of circumstantial reasons than of definite reasons. That is, there is no direct thing to say that this is because of this cause, but for if it was because of virus or bacteria, which we can always identify. Further, if, if we take the story of viruses and the bacteria, myocarditis may occur several weeks after the initial viral symptoms. Say the patient was symptomatic today, and it takes about few weeks, months before that effect of inflammation on the myocardium, which results into myocarditis, occurs and it causes its effect. Classic example we talked about was the rheumatic fever, where streptococcal infection would be there, and it would be after 3 to 5 weeks that it would be coming up. So, but generally, those having, not all suffer from myocarditis after an infection of viruses or bacteria. It is the susceptibility for this increased myocarditis, and that could be whenever the patient is consuming, say, glucocorticoids, the inflammation is half resolved, or the patient is immunosuppressed, so the expression is more of the inflammation, or because of the bacteria or the infection which may be there, or the reasons could be other ones. So a patient who has been exposed to radiation, or a patient whose myocardium is already scarred, or if you over-exercise with a damaged myocardium, the effects of myocarditis would come up. So patients who are immunocompromised, have been having radiational therapy in the past, are a higher have a higher incidence of the involvement of the cardiac muscle, which is primarily the cardiac muscle. So it is myocarditis. Now this could be idiopathic when no reasons are gone. But before idiopathic, it is important to identify between an infective, where the infective group could be because of viruses, and among these viruses, Coxsackie and HIV are the predominant ones which should always be looked for or worked upon, though adeno, cyto, eco, influenza, polio, hepatitis may also result into myocarditis, but Coxsackie and HIV are the two viruses which should always find a mention, or should find a mention in the evaluation whether they exist or not. It could be because of parasitic diseases. Toxoplasma is one of the leading ones, and the uh, outside India, trypanosoma is very common. So, toxoplasma should be worked up in an Indian population. Then we come to it could be because of bacterial. And as I just mentioned, we had the classical example of streptococcus, which could result into a pancreatitis, and we would term it as rheumatic pancreatitis. Even bacteria like diphtheria, which now comes very less, which is less common. Why? Because of the availability of the immunization schedule. But if diphtheria comes up late at times, then it may result into involvement of the myocardium, and the myocardium is more involved as blocks than the pump failure. I'll elaborate on the later on. Spirochetal infections, Leptospira these days, this is an epidemic, is one of the common organisms to cause myocarditis, as would be the Lyme disease, a disease of the West, not of India. Fungus and rickettsial are the other infections which can lead. So, the infections, be it virus, parasite, bacteria, spirochetal, fungus, rickettsia, where some of them are more to be remembered, like Leptospira, Streptococcus, Toxoplasma, HIV, Coxsackie. The rest just complete the list. So, myocarditis, inflammation of the myocardium, secondary to infective, and the infective organisms could be there. So, there is quite a reason to find out for these organisms or to look for these organisms by viruses test or by the bacterial test. Heart muscle is very sensitive to the effect of drugs, and because of the hypersensitivity reactions, because of methyl dopa, penicillin, sulfonamides, modafinil, which is for sleep disorders. But one of the commonly notorious drug is antituberculous drugs. INH and rifampicins are notorious for it. So a hypersensitivity reaction to this reaction to the antitubercular may lead into a reaction in the myocardium or the inflammation in the myocardium, that is myocarditis. Radiation, post-radiation, myocarditis is seen, but it is more of pericarditis, less of myocarditis. So we need to elaborate on a drug history whenever we find a patient suspected or being evaluated of a drug history intake in the past. Alcohol is not good for heart, and so it may result into myocarditis and later into cardiomyopathy. Use of hydrocarbons, petroleum products, exposure to them can always result into myocarditis. So we have the exposures, we have the intoxications, and we have drugs. Drugs which were used for good cause but become toxic because of hypersensitivity and radiation, causing more of pericarditis than myocarditis. Myocarditis is quite often autoimmune in nature. Diseases like SLE, rheumatoid arthritis, they all may result into a heart involvement, as your classes on rheumatology must have discussed, where there is an autoimmune form, and this is because of the auto-activated T cells, which then become organ specific, and because of the auto-activated T cells and the participation by the B cell phenomena, which result into an organ-specific antibodies, there might result into myocarditis because of the inflammation secondary to these activated T cells and B cell phenomena. Giant cell myocarditis is a classical variety. So toxins, drugs, alcohol, autoimmune. So if you go by the etiological list, ruling out a drug intake, ruling out recent infections, alcohol abuse, or your nature of your job are the important questions one should put forward. Now, what all they are resulting into? They are resulting into inflammation, which is myocarditis. Myocarditis can present in four ways as pathologically. One variety is known as fulminant myocarditis. This follows a viral prodrome, usually influenza-like, and because it is fulminant, so the myocardial, what is the main function of the myocardium? Mechanical function. So because the mechanical system is involved, so there is a mechanical failure. So these patients present with severe heart failure or inadequate to put across the pressures, blood pressures, that is cardiogenic shock. The other variety could be acute myocarditis, which affects the heart, but it is over the longer period. Unlike the fulminant, which was presenting with severe heart failure, they take longer time because the episode has occurred, but myocardium being large tends to compensate to begin with. But over the time, if it goes on, this may result into a heart failure, and finally, there because of the acute myocarditis, the sequelae could be a dilated cardiomyopathy. Chronic active myocarditis, though rare, results into a chronic myocardial inflammation, and because we can understand Once there is a chronic myocardial inflammation, heart failure, cardiogenic shock, and finally resulting into a dilated heart, that is cardiomyopathy. Because the muscle is to sag. Once it is inflamed, it cannot work, and once it cannot work, it gradually gets degenerated, and so it loses its function, and that is cardiomyopathy for simpler words. The fourth variety which is seen is known as chronic persistent myocarditis. Here there are focal areas. They are not generalized areas. So these focal, whenever the focal myocardium is involved, there are two aspects of it. One, that area would pain. So chest pain is more common. But more important is we have the bundle system going through it. So the arrhythmias would be more. So this is one variety. Whenever there is a story of myocarditis, where arrhythmias is more, possibility of chronic persistent myocarditis is always high, less than those chronic active myocarditis or acute myocarditis. So four varieties for description, but the common effect they are producing is loss of function, and the loss of function is mechanical failure of the heart. So these patients, whether they present acutely or chronically, for some time they may remain asymptomatic because the myocardium cannot work to its capacity. So the perfusion of the peripheral tissues get affected, so patient complain of fatigue. The stroke volume cannot increase. So the only way to increase and maintain the cardiac output is the heart rate. So patient complains of frequent palpitations. It is an inflamed muscle, so it is likely to pain. So chest pain can be one of the symptoms. The muscle getting all involved loses its main impact of mechanical function, that is throwing the blood in the forward direction, and so the backward congestion causes dyspnea, that is left heart failure, which we have already been talking. But this can be certainly fulminant in appearance, fulminant especially in that group of fulminant myocarditis. At times, it may certainly present with sudden unexpected cardiac death. Why? Because the myocardium has two things. One is the mechanical part, the other part is the electrical conduction part. So if the electrical conduction part gives way, the conduction would not be there and the heart would not function mechanically, and so there would be a death. So right from the varies from asymptomatic to an unexpected cardiac death, but the watch out symptom is dyspnea, which gradually is coming over in a participation with fatigue and palpitation. Does myocarditis have some signs to look for? Yes. As the cardiac output was to met across, so the heart rate was increased because stroke volume cannot increase because of the inflamed myocardium. So tachycardia is very common. The heart's sounds, because they are now inflamed, so now the valves also have its effects. So the pressures are not too much in the two chambers, whether atria and ventricle, which is the basic uh, reason for having those snappy heart sounds as we discussed in mitral stenosis and other. So patients have soft heart sounds because of low pressure areas both in atria and ventricle, because myocardium is poorly contracting, so the pressure produced are less and the pressures are not high. So this gate opening and closure especially, is very soft. Now the myocardium, because it is inflamed, so definitely it's understandable its relaxation power, as its contraction power is gone, so it's relaxation. And we know that the third heart sound would always be produced whenever there is a relaxation failure. So one may have S3. Myocardium very close by is pericardium. If the inflammation is in the myocardium, definitely it spills onto the pericardium at times, and patients may present with pericardial rub. So the signs to be looked for is tachycardia. Generally, we know tachycardia produces loud heart sound. If it has a soft heart sound, which is in company of a third sound, it's a reason to suspect for myocarditis. Pericardial rub at times may give company. So tachycardia, soft heart sounds, they do not match. So do watch for myocarditis. Can how to investigate? The diagnosis of myocarditis are often made after the other common causes of cardiac dysfunctions are excluded. Means we will try to exclude hypertension, we will like to exclude chronic coronary artery disease, we like to exclude valvular heart disease before we come to myocarditis. And then in the group of myocarditis, we will talk about recent infections, past infections, drug intake, toxin abuse, alcohol abuse, radiations, and so forth, as has been talked in the etiology. So it's a matter of excluding the primary ones, the valves, the coronary artery, and hypertension, because we are finding a reason for the myocardial failure. Expectedly, myocardium is inflamed, so the cardiac enzymes get elevated. The ECGs, when done, shows non-specific ST and T wave abnormalities. And as I said, that myocardium has the conduction system along with it, so arrhythmias are known. In a few varieties, heart blocks, because we have SA, AV, and bundle of His. So because bundle of His and system might be involved after the AV, so heart blocks are seen, and in the heart blocks are more notoriously seen in infections of post diphtheria, Lyme, and Chagas. Interestingly, Chagas and Lyme doesn't exist much commonly in India, and diphtheria, because of use of the immunization schedule, is almost off. So for us to remember is ST and T wave abnormality or arrhythmia. If you do the X-ray chest, there could be some cardiac enlargement. It depends upon the chronicity of myocarditis, because gradually the heart will enlarge, not acutely it will enlarge. And also, it depends upon the virulence of the disease. How virulent was the disease, so how acute its effects would come. Some would be less virulent, their effect would take longer. So cardiomegaly, it all depends the stage at which it presents, and if it is an infective etiology, then it is the more determinant because of the virulence than the other things. A good number lists, amongst which there was Coxsackie and HIV. So viral antibody titers may be found to be increased. The diagnosis depends on demonstration of an acute rising. So one might have to show the matching titers about two values successfully. A very good investigation, that is cardiac MRI, has come up recently. It not only shows hyperemia, it also shows the zones of necrosis and zones of fibrosis. That means the from the itis which has gone into pathy. So it's a very good investigation, unlike the other ones like ECG or the X-ray chest or the enzymes. This one investigation can tell what has been the net result, what has been the chronicity, and what are the acute, so that one can look into those varieties, as we said, acute persistent, acute progressive, and the acute myocarditis per se. So hyperemia is the inflammation, and necrosis and fibrosis, we all understand, would always be after the, the inflammation is subsided, that is pathy, myopathy. Are there any specific investigations? Yes. Endomyocardial biopsy should be done. Generally, it is avoided in acute inflammation, but if done in acute state, the evidence of lymphocytes should suggest of viruses, so viral antibodies should be looked for. If it suggests a polymorphonucleostatic story, bacteria should be looked into. The classical example was streptococcal, though I never talked about the biopsy there. In case there are the eosinophilic response, then definitely the story of drugs, allergies should come up. So allergic and hypersensitivity should be looked into. So biopsy broadens our outlook toward the type of investigations then should be referred for. If case there are lymphocytes, specific diagnosis require demonstration of that active viral application. That could be Coxsackie, HIV. So viral RNA, DNA can be measured not only from the seras but also from the biopsy materials using PCRs. So biopsy has endomyocardial biopsy difficult because you would not like to injure an already inflamed muscle. But whenever the etiology is not clear, it gives you a broader domain to look forward and to study intensively through RNAs and DNAs and PCRs to identify the possible virus if it is in question after lymphocyte rich material has been achieved. If we have made the diagnosis till time should be clear, is more historically, more clinically, and lab investigation generally only help because endomyocardial biopsy is something which is uncommonly performed. So the underlying cause must be identified, treated, eliminated, and avoided. That is the crux. That you identify it. Say there is a drug, you identify it. Withdrawing it is the treatment, or eliminating is treatment. Same as alcohol, it should be avoided if identified as one of the causes. So what should we do? When the patient comes with the myocarditis, patient should be advised bed rest. And this bed rest should gradually become the activity of daily routine till 6 months. The patient should not take any athletic activity because the heart will pound more with each activity. It has already tachycardia or the relative activity that one performs. Heart failure should be treated conventionally because myocarditis has resulted into heart failure, dyspnea, breathlessness. So the use of diuretics, ACE inhibitors, ARBs, beta blockers, spironolactones with or without digoxins are offered, treated as we were to treat congestive heart failure in the lectures that we have already elaborated upon. As was talked on the rheumatic fever, antibiotics should be administered immediately where appropriate. Some say if you prove the ASO titers, antibiotics is on. So routinely bed rest and treatment for heart failure, restrict the gradual activity uptake and full activity after 6 months of the episode. Non-steroidal antibodies are almost contraindicated because they are water retaining, so we want to avoid that. Uh, it's an inflammation. Should we use corticosteroids? The controversy is the same. They are water retaining. They may reduce inflammation, but at the same time, they may retain water. So both NSAIDs and corticosteroids should be avoided. But we were using NSAIDs in rheumatic fever, where it is of use, especially those patients who present with arthritis, not with carditis. The administration of high dose intravenous immunoglobulins appears to be associated with a more rapid resolution of the left ventricular dysfunction and improved survival. So, if can we offer something at this level? Yes, we can offer immunoglobulins. Why? Immunoglobulins would have many implications. Say it will tend to work against those antibodies of the viruses of the product which has come up, and it will negate it, the effect, and also the antigen which is there, it will also take care of. So basically, body takes some time to produce antibodies. Then immunoglobulin is the ready-made immunoglobulins which will take care of the antigens, and it is the fixation of these antigens which are where to cause the disease that will be reduced. So immunoglobulins has a potential future role, but no to NSAIDs and corticosteroids. Effective antivirals, interferon gamma, immunomodulating like interleukin 10 agent, because inter 10 is raised, are available to treat viral myocarditis provided we establish. And that can only be established once it is a zone where the disease is high, like Coxsackie as such. Secondly, the definite diagnosis will only come by the viral titers. If the titers speak for it, antivirals may be offered in the management of, as you would offer antibiotics if there is a secondary to a bacteria. Does immunosuppressive therapy help? Like in inflammation in rheumatology, immunosuppressives were used. Immunosuppressives should only be used when the patient has evidence of cardiac sarcoidosis, giant cell myocarditis, or there is evidence of eosinophilic myocarditis, generally in a setting of connective tissue disorder.